Let's try. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Jamuna Tira Manachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajikacharya Ashtotartha Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajikacharya Ashtotartha Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Well, welcome to everybody. This is a new record for me. Usually we have 5 or 6, maybe 7, but Taco Tuesday always brings them out. Okay, and we have at least 10 people online, so it's a maximum crowd for me. Okay, we are going to be reading 16? 10. Oh, here, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, 10. All right, we're going to be reading page 195 at the bottom. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 27th day of May, 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge. Text 10 at the bottom of page 195. Okay. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā. Go ahead. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā. Nilesh. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā. One more on this side of the room. Anyone want to try it? Go ahead. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā. Ladies. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā. Go ahead. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa Pṛthā. Page 195, Sarah. Word by word, just follow along silently. Vita, freed from, raga, attachment, bhaya, fear, krodha, and anger. Matmayaha, fully in me, mam, in me, upashitaha, being fully situated, bhavaha, many, jnana, of knowledge, tapasa, by the penance, Pṛthā, being purified, mat bhavam, transcendental love for me, agataha, attained. Okay. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. Purport. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the Supreme can be a person. Such materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the Supreme to be impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again, and so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence, attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all. Being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in a diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause. And some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. This last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and this word should be resultant. And the resultant hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. One has to get rid of all three stages of material consciousness: attachment to material life, fear of a spiritual personal identity, and the conception of void that arises from frustration in life. To get free from these three stages of the material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional life. The last stage of the devotional life is called bhava, or transcendental love of Godhead. According to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1:4-15-16, the science of devotional service. Then these verses are Adhau Shraddha Tatak Sadhu Sango Tabhajana Kriya Tato Narta Nivritti Syat Tato Nishta Ruchis Tataha Hata Sakti Tato Bhava Tata Prema Abhyudanchati Sadhakaram Ayam Premna Pradu Bhavet Bhavet Kramaha. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service, under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness in self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love for God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. Close quote. In the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations that result in void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this is quite a purport. Srila Prabhupada has put the whole process, quoting these verses from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He's giving us a little overview of the process of devotional service, or bhakti yoga. And in this chapter so far, Krishna has given us some very important information about why and when he appears on this earth, in text 6 and 7, I believe, these famous 7 and 8. Yada yada hi dharmasya glana bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham. This verse, as I mentioned, is taught to children who grow up in India, right? You all know this verse, right? Your parents taught you? It's really quite amazing. So what it means is, yada yada means whenever, wherever, there arise discrepancies in the true process of religion, this Krishna consciousness, Krishna bhakti, and adharma becomes more widespread. At that time, I appear, I manifest myself on this earth. And the next verse explains what he does. 3 things really. Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashayas dushkritam, dharma sangstapanartaya, sambhavami yuge yuge. So the last part means I appear in every age. And I have these 3 missions that no one gives him the missions, he takes them on himself. In order to protect the devotees. And we see this especially in pastimes like with Prahlad Maharaj and the Pandavas. Actually, part of this Mahabharata is also the wonderful story of the greater India. You know, Mahabharata means the story of greater India. And there's a whole plot of how the righteousness personified in the form of Yudhishthira, who's the son of Dharma Raj or Yamaraj, and his brothers who were all like divinely born. Their fathers were demigods. They're the side of righteousness, and on the other side you have these Dhritarashtra and his many sons who are trying to usurp the throne, you know. And so that's the backstory to the Mahabharata. And this Bhagavad Gita is part of it, 18 chapters, very dramatically, just before the battle takes place. Arjuna gets cold feet because he sees on the other side his beloved grandfather figure who helped raise them when his father died untimely, and he and his brothers, and his teacher, the one who taught him military art, you know. So he's saying they're on the other side, and I'm going to have to kill them. Forget it. I don't want to be in this fight. He wants to go off. I'll become a beggar, you know. So he has this whole argument in chapter 1 and 2 why he can't fight. So that's the overall framework, and the Bhagavad Gita is spoken in order to convince Arjuna that he should fight. And at the end, of course, he says the immortal words, Karishe vachanang tava. Oh Krishna, I will do as you say. I agree, you know. So this is all part of it. And in this process, Krishna is teaching the different kinds of yoga. They all appear. We've had karma yoga emphasized in the previous chapter. This is called jnana yoga, transcendental knowledge. Jnana is knowledge. And actually what he teaches is how each of those is an element of bhakti yoga. But karma yoga simply means acting in such a way that you're not incurring more karma that will bring you back for another birth, you see, another round of birth, old age, disease, and death. How to work, and it's called naishkarmya. We don't want to do really good karma, so we can get a better birth, a better enjoyment, even go to heaven, material heaven, which we have to come back from anyway. That's not going to help us. The basic mission is as spirit souls. This is the first lesson. We are not these bodies. We are all, each one of us, pure spirit souls. And really, really good news, we never die. And we're never born. But, huh?
Let's hear it. The poetry.
Oh. Well, I changed it first, because everybody sounds like everybody. Every single body dies. Nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. So if we're not these bodies, what are we? We're pure spirit. Then we're persons, spiritual persons that we've been covered over. Our spiritual personality has been covered over since time immemorial. So, because we don't know how many births and deaths we've had. And it's very important to understand, once you come to the human form of life, it's not that you cannot fall back down into the other species. We've been through who knows how many countless species, how many births coming up, and not having any clue about this knowledge, and just acting on a material platform, and then boom, down again we can go into the lower species. So that's the basic mission of the soul, is to escape from this situation and get back, get liberation, Okay, that's the liberation. But liberation, when you think about it, is a negative thing. In other words, it means we get free from something else, but free for what? That's the idea. We're not just simply after liberation. We're after liberation plus going back home, back to Godhead, to be reinstated in an original spiritual position in this wonderful spiritual world, which is, to put it succinctly, Satchit Ananda, which is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. This is the nature of God. There's the famous poem, the main, the creator of this world, the one who engineers, I think in Greek it's the demiurge, who engineers this whole universe that we're in. Not the original God, but his first deputy for that is called Lord Brahma. Brahma. Now Brahma is a great devotee, and he's going back to Godhead, especially this Brahma. Brahma doesn't always go back to Godhead, but this one is, because he's the head of our Sampradaya. The Sampradaya means the spiritual succession. And there are four main ones that are bona fide, and we belong to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Means that the original knowledge was, Krishna's always at the head. He gives the knowledge to Brahma. How? In the heart. Brahma was born in a very unusual way. He wasn't born from a womb. He was born from a lotus that grew from the navel of one of Krishna's expansions, Vishnu. Yeah, it's pretty far out. And then he wakes up, he's born, he's on this lotus. There's no one around. It's dark. So what is this? What should I do? So then Krishna, he hears 3 times these 2 syllables. He's very intelligent. He's so intelligent that 1 head is not enough for his brains. He's got 4 heads. But actually, trying to populate this world, because his job is to everybody begin their karma again, So I say that it's a big headache. Actually, it's a lot of headaches for him. 4 headaches. So anyway, he sits. So what to do? He's sitting there. It's dark, He says, "Where did I come from?" So all he's got is the lotus, and this big stem. So he said, "Well, maybe I'll go down the lotus to figure out where it is." But he can't. He's not ready to realize God yet. He can't really reach Vishnu down there. So he comes back up and sits down and waits, and he hears these 2 syllables 3 times uttered in the ether. Did you ever hear this before? You look pretty puzzled. Tapa, tapa, tapa. You never heard that? It's in the Bhagavad Gita. So tapa means austerity. It means that you have to perform austerity. So he's very intelligent, And so he says, okay, I got to meditate. So he meditates for a long time. And then Krishna enlightens him from within the heart. That's right in the second verse of Bhagavatam. No, excuse me, first verse of Bhagavatam. Janmad yasya yaton vyada tadatashtarte svidvigyam sarat tene brahma vadaya adikavaye muyan tene. Now you got to get the long and shorts right. That word Brahma is not Brahma. Brahma is a long A at the end. Brahma means spiritual knowledge. Adikavaye is Brahma, the original learned person. You see? So Krishna, because he's here in all of our hearts also as super soul, but we're not pure enough to hear him speak, So he wants to enlighten us, so he comes outside as the spiritual master, as the Shastra, the scripture, you see, so that we can get the message that way. So Brahma gets the message, and then he speaks, he writes, or composes the Brahma Samhita, the Song of Brahma, and that book wasn't translated by Prabhupada. It was translated by Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and it's available. If we have that, and it's also in the database. So the Brahma Samhita, many devotees learn the Govinda prayers, which we hear every morning. If you ever hear at 7:15, every temple has a greeting of the deities. After they dress the deities, very nicely and have breakfast, and the curtains open and beautiful, And so during that, then there's a certain song that's played that was recorded by one of the pioneers in the movement, Yamuna Devi and Mukunda and George Harrison. Yes, of the Beatles. That's why it sounds very professional. And there's 3 or 4 verses here, but the first verse, which isn't not part of the Samhita so much, is Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Very important verse. I can take it apart. Ishvara. Ishvara means the controller. We're also Ishvara, small Ishvaras. We have our little realm of control, you know. Even the homeless people, they have their thing, their little. If you trespass on their little corner where they are, you know, hey, this is my place. So we're Ishvara, but Krishna is Parameshwara. He's the supreme controller. He's the supreme controller of all like Brahma and all Shiva and all the others. They defer to Krishna. He's the supreme in control. So Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, that word. His form is not made of earth, water, fire, and all the things that ours made of, bones and stuff. No. It's all eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So his completely spiritual body. Krishna doesn't have a soul. He's all soul. He's all spirit, pure spirit. And our original body is also like that, pure spirit, you see. But now it's a combination, literally, of matter and spirit, right? Matter and spirit. So Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir, he has no beginning. People want to know, okay, how did God come about? He never came about. He's always existed. We in these bodies, we didn't always exist in this form, obviously. So Anadir, Adir, he's the beginning of all. Everything that's created is emanating from him with his energies. And then, okay, this is all very official, you know, it's like his position, office work. But Anadir, Govinda, you see. He has his own planet. Govinda means he pleases the cows and the land and the senses, transcendental senses, you see. And so, Sarvakarana Karanam. And he's the cause of all causes. In other words, when you think about it, like all of us, you know, don't they have sites you can go to try to trace out your lineage, you know? So we all have parents, and they have parents. So when you get to the original parent, the someone who caused everything, that's Krishna. Sarvakarana Karanam. So that verse, you know, there's so much information in that one verse. And then there's a whole other section, and then you get to text 29 where the actual Govinda song comes in. And it's very wonderful. The very first one describes Krishna in the spiritual world. Chindamani pakadasadma sukalpa vriksha lakshavate susudabhira vipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra shata sambrama sevyamanam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. Now I made a recording of this many years ago, back in 84, 85, how long is that? 40 years. And I made it Sanskrit and English. I had a little tambura and everything. And if you want it, it's going to cost you. You got to write me an email. I give out all these. I have the whole Bhagavad Gita recorded. Just write to me and ask for it. Yeah, including the. So the email is. Listen, you can remember it. Dravida 108. Dravida 108. And if you at gmail.com. And if you can't remember, here's my secretary, Mahima. She has it. She'll give it to you. Yeah, and all this poetry also I have in a nice file for you. And now I've added a recording of it. So anyway, back to our verse. So Krishna now is giving he's defining or describing who can really attain love for me. And here's some of the prerequisites. Vita raga bhaya krodha. Now we learned in chapter 2 that the raga and bhaya and krodha, or raga and krodha, these are results of our attachment to this material world. When naturally our senses become attached to things in this world and our mind, and we try to enjoy. And when we enjoy that, we want to do it again. You know, once you enjoy something, you want to try to do it again. So that becomes a desire that's planted in your mind. And at the time of death, all of these unfulfilled desires, you know, and now oftentimes disappointments and fears and the karma for what you've done. It could be good karma. You can be very kind. You helped others. You planted trees and like that. And so you'll get a good birth. You'll get rewarded in the next life. You know, you may have you'll be born in a place where it's not, there's no wars going on and things like that. We may be born on a different planet the way this planet is going, but it's still, you'll have a chance to live. But we don't want that. We don't want to come back, even if it's in material heaven, where you eventually fall down anyway. We don't want to come back at all. There's this nice book called Coming Back, which is put together by Mukunda Maharaj and several other devotees, and it's of course quotes from Srila Prabhupada. It's based on the philosophy. And it's all about reincarnation. And it even gives some empirical proof for reincarnation. Prabhupada mentions this actually in the books, that it's especially in India, but it can be any place. You get on YouTube and if you key in reincarnation, there's one boy in Chicago who was insisting to his parents, this is how it happens, young kids, they remember, some remember previous lives or part of it. Said, oh yeah, I was a fighter pilot, and I was shot down in this big war, World War II, Said, what is that, And sure enough, they investigated, and there was a pilot named that, and we had this airplane. But mostly these are in India, these young kids. A lot of kids remember. They remember, you're not my mother. You can imagine, my mother is in this other town, So if you go there, they're there, So there was this American guy named Ian Stevenson, I think his name was. He was a professor in college. And he was very interested in this reincarnation. And he heard about these cases. He went to India, and he started doing field work, and he found some children who were saying that, and he investigated that their town was just maybe 50 miles away, And sure enough, there were a whole bunch of cases he found where they remembered, and there was no way that they got information from their parents or anything like that. So there's some empirical, proof of reincarnation. So that's the central tenet here. So we want to try to end that. We don't want to come back. The last chapter of this chapter, Coming Back, is don't come back. And the way to not come back is by developing pure love for God, for Krishna. So Vita Raga, being free from material attachment and also fear and anger. Manmaya means being fixed on me, right? Yeah, fully in me, Krishna conscious. Mamopashrita, taking shelter of me, means trying to dovetail our activities with Krishna's desires. Now, he gives many instructions in here. There's like 2 verses that kind of encapsulate the whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. And one of them is at the end, the last chapter, 18, 65, and 66. And 65 is almost identical to the last verse in chapter 9. So any verse that's repeated is very important. So here's the verse. I'll give it to you. I made it put it in a little poem. It's very simple. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madjaji mam namaskuru. Mame vaishasi satyam te patijane priyosi me. So he says to Arjuna, and he's telling to all of us, just think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjun, from anxiety. No, that's the next verse. And bow down low. You'll come to me, I promise, O Arjun, from anxiety be free. Now I'm mixing 2 verses together. But anyway, the idea is that these 4 elements, think of me. And this whole process is systematically learn how to think of Krishna. And it's based on this mantra. There he is, there's the name, Krishna. And because he's absolute, he's supernatural, he's invested his potencies in his name. So when we chant that name, it's not like an ordinary name. Prabhupada would say, if you chant Mr. John, Mr. John, Mr. John, after less than a minute, you'll be disgusted. You say, okay, that's enough. But you try chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Let's try it again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Now, I don't know if any of you were in Orlando over the weekend. Did anyone get over there? Well, get on YouTube. It's all on there. I got on one day, and I looked at the timing, because they tell you how long the little thing will last, 2 minutes or 11 hours? They made it one big long YouTube thing. Just look for it. What do they call it? I'm sorry. Sadhu Sangha retreat 2025. And you see, there's Satyanandan Swami giving a wonderful lecture, Radhanath Swami, and there's Vishrambar, the Kirtan, you know, and 1,000 devotees, at least, more than 1,000. 4,000? It's the largest one ever. And they are in this big hall in Orlando, down there, you know. And you can hear this incredible Kirtan and enthusiasm advancing, you know. And so that, I remember in the old days when I joined, 3 hours a day was our prescribed kirtan on the street of New York, Manhattan. Yeah. There was this church we used in Manhattan on Fifth Avenue, and we would stand on the stairs. I don't even know if they knew we were there, but anyway, they never complained, and we would go on that church. I have some pictures of me chanting. And it was just a wonderful experience. It's even more potent when you're outside, you know, because you're conscious of the people hearing, and you read the books. If someone just hears the name even once, not even just chants it, hears it once, and so many lifetimes of karma are wiped out. It's a very, very auspicious. Yeah, this chanting. It's not an ordinary sound. So and when you chant Hare Krishna and you read Prabhupada's books, they're all about Krishna, and he gave us this Krishna book, the Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is a summary of the 10th canto. All of Krishna's pastimes are there, you know, most delightful pastimes. So that's fills your mind with thoughts of Krishna, and this whole temple and the whole movement gives us a context by which we can contact him to a service. You know, don't think you're not serving Krishna by listening to Bhagavad Gita. That's the most important service, is to hear from the spiritual master, hear from Krishna. Because that's really how, you know, this knowledge is important. The whole chapter is called knowledge. Through the knowledge is what is how you act. You get a certain amount of knowledge. Oh, I've heard about, you know, AI. That sounds like something I'd like to do. You know, AI. So, you know, when you get that, then you look at books like that, you try to take courses to get into, you know, I'll make $1 million, you know. If not, then I'll make $2 million or whatever, you know. So, but it's all this knowledge, right? You got this idea in your mind how you do it. So if you understand, you hear, you're reading Prabhupada's wonderful purports and Krishna's words, then you get inspired. Well, let me try that. That sounds like you come to the temple and you say, oh, there's a nice atmosphere and the prasadam is nice, you know, so let me hang out there, you know. And before you know it, you've gotten a little more attached to Krishna and a little less attached to Maya, right? Boy, I'm glad I gave that up. You know, I look back at my life and I see that there were so many, you know, we can all look at it. There's so many turns where if I went this way, whoa, that would have been a whole, I'm glad I didn't go that way, I'm glad I went that way, you know. And I was living, believe it or not, 2 blocks from anyone who knows the early days of the movement. Tompkins Square Park should ring a bell. Tompkins Square Park is where Prabhupada first chanted publicly. Actually, he did chant on the west side, but they had police there, and he was sitting on the grass saying, "Can't you read the sign?" You know, so he had to sit on the pavement and chant. So they chanted one time I forgot what's the park called. Anyway, it's a famous. Not Central Park. It's the one that's where the New York University is there. It's on 8th Street. Anyway, Washington Square Park. You're a New Yorker. Brooklyn. That's close enough. But on the east side, you know, it's not so strict. You know, so Tompkins Square Park, they don't care where you sit, what you do. So he took the boys over there, his little crew. And he sat for 3 hours beating a little half a bongo drum. You can see it. It's a nice movie on YouTube. You can see it. The early days. And he's beating that drum and he's chanting Hare Krishna, you know, for 3 hours. And a whole bunch of people sat down and listened, and other people got up and danced, you know, like that. And it was very successful. So that was the beginning where he introduced it. But when by the time I joined, this was about 6 years later, at 73. But the movement was well established, and we would go out for 3 hours a day. Sometimes to Central Park. I have an old little fuzzy picture of me chanting and jumping up and down in Central. There's one. I'm sorry. There's in the Adi Leela. There's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is all about Lord Chaitanya. It's the most authoritative biography of Lord Chaitanya, because it also lays out the philosophy very wonderfully. But in the first part, it describes Lord Chaitanya's associates. And one was called Vakreshwar Pandit. And he was very enthusiastic about dancing in kirtan. You know, that's the whole part of it, dancing. And he could dance, get it? You may want to take notes on this. He could dance without stopping for 72 hours. And I was thinking, I'd like to get that, you know, because I was kind of athletic, you know. So I said, but I got to have the right shoes, you know. I can't have these flip-flops, you know. Now we were we were in Brooklyn, and it was 73, so it wasn't the 60s, but the 60s kind of bled into the 70s, and so we had people, you know, free thinkers and people. They would come, and especially in the summertime. You know, everyone had to take off their shoes, like you do here if you go into the temple, you know. So we had a shoe room near the entrance, and when would come, you could get a number, because we had a lot of guests for the Sunday feast. So, but amazingly, I think some people would come with shoes and leave without shoes, because gradually that shoe room filled up with shoes. That's the only way it could happen. So I knew that, so I said, oh, let me look in the shoe room. Maybe there's something that, and there was this pair of sneakers that just perfectly fit me. And I said, this is Krishna's, you know, I know it's Krishna's desire. He wants me to do this. You know. So I would try to dance for 3 hours straight, you know, not to speak of 3 days. But anyway, and it was always a very ecstatic experience, you know, because you're with the holy name, and you know that you're benefiting these people come by. Some people would stop and listen, you know, you'd give them so many pamphlets and magazines at that time. And so, so I would do that, and eventually, when we moved to LA, then we go down into Hollywood, you know, Hollywood Boulevard, and sometimes I would be in the front leading. I remember one time there was a big line to get into a movie, you know, and we were coming down and we were kind of edging the people over, you know, and one guy he didn't like us, and I was leading the kirtan, and he comes and he swings at me. He was kind of drunk. He missed, you know. And another guy came off the line and hit him and knocked him out. Okay, yeah, he came off and he knocked him down anyway. So that was one of my adventures. But so the kirtan, because this Krishna has invested his name with his potencies. So we should try to remember that. It's inconceivable, but if you chant his name, you're associating with God, with Krishna. And the benefits are you're becoming purified. You're wiping out lifetimes of karma. You don't know it, but that's one of the again and again. And I'll give you one verse. I haven't shared this one in a long time. Modana, I just thought of it again. It's in Modana Metan Mangalam Mangalanam Sakaladingamalli Satpalam Chit Swarupam Sakadabipadigitam Shadya Helayava Bhagavadanadamatam Tadiyat Krishna Nama. Krishna Nama, the name of Krishna. Of sweet things, it's the sweetest you will taste at any time. Of things that bring good fortune, it's the perfect paradigm. Of all the Vedic writings, it's the transcendental fruit. The very form of spirit, unalloyed and absolute. When uttered even once with faith, or uttered once with none, from birth and death it surely will deliver anyone. And in the end, it gives pure love for God. No, that's not right. I forgot the. But in the end, it gives. And in the end, it gives pure love for Krishna, life's true aim. So cast away all doubt and can't chant Shri Krishna's holy name. I'm sorry, you look it up in your poetry file. But that's Modana, very sweet. The more that you chant it, the more that you get the flavor. And I'm telling you, I'll give one more verse and then we'll go back to the Gita. Oh boy, it's getting late. So this is a verse by a great disciple of Lord Chaitanya. His first disciple, Sanatana Goswami. There's a wonderful section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 4 or 5 chapters that describe his teachings to Sanatana Goswami. So Sanatana Goswami wrote a book called the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which means the big repository of nectar describing the essence of the Bhagavatam, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the beginning has these wonderful introductory verses, and one of them is about the holy name. And he says, I hope I get this right. Jayati Jayati Nama Ananda Rupam Morare Vidamita Nija Dharma Dhyani Pujari Yatnam. Yes, Vidamita Nija Dharma Dhyani Pujari Yatnam. Katamapi Sakradatam Muktidam Praninam Yad Paramam Amritamekam Jivanam Bhushanam Me. So Jayati Jayati means, oh glories, oh glories. He had several verses like that. Oh glories, to the holy name of Krishna, Murari, which is another name for Krishna. Jayati Jayati Namananda Rupam, which is the very form of bliss. Ananda Rupam. Now he's tasting this. He's chanting, 100,000 names a day. We chant about 25,000. And Vidamita Nija Dharma Jana Pujari. By chanting this name, it causes you to become disinterested in all of the materialistic sacrifices and all the other parts of the larger Vedic culture. Nija Dharma, Dhyana, meditation, Dharma, Puja, of the worshipping the demigods. All of that you become indifferent to. You become so enthralled with chanting. Uttered even once, against this, uttered even once, it will deliver anyone. Katamapi sakadatam muktidam praninam yad, for any living being who chants it, or the human being, then he'll become liberated, even chanting once purely. So then the last line, padamam amritamekam, it is my supreme and soul nectar. Jivanam, my very life, my bhushanam, my only ornament. The ornament of his life. So this is one of many wonderful verses glorifying the holy name. And you could even pray. There's in the Namashtaka by Rupa Goswami, several of the verses are prayers to the holy name to please give me more and more taste for you. Let my taste for you never wane, so that I can always chant you like that. So the holy name is central to this practice of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and that we're standing here. And everything fits in with that. Vitaraga Bhayakroda. By chanting the holy name and becoming serious, you will become free of material attachment, fear, and anger. This is we have a perfect example in Srila Prabhupada and and Prahlad and many others. Manmaya, who are always thinking me, filled with thoughts of me, and are surrendered unto me and my representative. Many, bahavo jnana tapasa, by attaining transcendental knowledge and austerity, they become purified, Pṛthā madbhavamagata, and attain pure love for me. So right we're only in the 4th chapter here, and Krishna is giving this significant verse. All right, let's do one more. Boy, the next one is another key verse. Ye yatamam papadyante Tang sataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmana vartante manushya partha sarvashaha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pṛthā. Purport. Everyone is searching for Krishna in the different aspects of his manifestations. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is partially realized in his impersonal Brahma Jyoti effulgence and as the all-pervading Supersoul dwelling within everything, including the particles of atoms. But Krishna is fully realized only by his pure devotees. Consequently, Krishna is the object of everyone's realization, and thus anyone and everyone is satisfied according to one's desire to have him. In the transcendental world also, Krishna reciprocates with his pure devotees in the transcendental attitude, just as the devotee wants him. One devotee may want Krishna as the Supreme Master, another as his personal friend, another as his son, and still another as his lover. Krishna rewards all the devotees equally, according to their different intensities of love for him. In the material world, the same reciprocations of feelings are there, and they are equally exchanged by the Lord with the different types of worshippers. The pure devotees, both here and in the transcendental abode, associate with him in person and are able to render personal service to the Lord and thus derive transcendental bliss in his loving service. As for those who are impersonalists and who want to commit spiritual suicide by annihilating the individual existence of the living entity, Krishna helps also by absorbing them into his effulgence. Such impersonalists do not agree to accept the eternal, blissful personality of Godhead. Consequently, they cannot relish the bliss of transcendental personal service to the Lord, having extinguished their individuality. Some of them, who are not firmly situated even in the impersonal existence, return to this material field to exhibit their dormant desires for activities. They are not admitted into these spiritual planets, but they are again given a chance to act on the material planets. For those who are fruitive workers, the Lord awards the desired results of their prescribed duties, as the Yageshwara, that's the master of sacrifice. And those who are yogis seeking mystic powers are awarded such powers. In other words, everyone is dependent for success upon his mercy alone, and all kinds of spiritual processes are but different degrees of success on the same path. Unless, therefore, one comes to the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, all attempts remain imperfect, as is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10. Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udadadihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Whether one is without desire, the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive results, or is after liberation, one should with all efforts try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. Okay. Any questions on these points? I'm thinking maybe we should start this class at 7. I don't know if we'd have a fall off in attendance, because I keep going overtime. Maybe I should just be more concise and try to stick to the point. Anyway, so this verse is also very important. Basically saying Krishna reciprocates exactly as we approach him. If we ignore him, then we'll feel like there's no God. You know, I want to tell this. I'm going to censor this one. I take a walk every morning. I take a brisk walk. It's invaluable. And up Cass, and it's a little incline, so it's more than just a walk, it's a walk. And so at 6:30, there aren't that many people out, but whoever's out, if they look up from their phones, practically everyone's on their phones over there, then I say, good morning. And if I get a good morning, I say, okay, that's 1 point into the bhakti, they said hello. So I met this lady. I could see she was probably homeless, but all right. So I said, good morning. And she looked at me and said, I worship Jesus. I said, all right. And I just kept walking, I didn't say anything. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then she kept at it. I mean, I could hear her. There was hardly, somehow I could hear her. I was a whole block away, and she was still berating, I don't know what she was, because I was a big, heathen, according to her. But at least I got some response. So she had to think of that stupid Hare Krishna. But she said Hare Krishna. All right, so let's end with this one. All right, so this is I guess it was that Mother to Mother Maitam that I hadn't thought in a while. But this is one that many of you haven't heard. And this is just try to listen to the skill of the composition. This is from Rupa Goswami. It was Udasi Parispudarindinamindindinamandada Sujolasitam Hadamanganata Mangala Mangala Satchandanam Bande. Now, upon his chest is manifest the mark of Goddess Shri, and there to rest the best of wreaths, a temple for the bees, who worship him by singing hymns that limn his loving play. Now, you may not want to know that word limb. This is one limb, but now I'm talking about that limb. Limn means to describe. Okay, so let's start again. Upon his chest is manifest the mark of Goddess Shri, that's the goddess of fortune. And there to rest the best of wreaths, a temple for the bees, who worship him by singing hymns that limn his loving play, while Sri Hari most gleefully acclaims the way they pray. For Braja's love-mad milkmaids and for all the Brahmins' wives, Shri Krishna is the ultimate good fortune in their lives. His sandal-paste anointed limbs bedim the full moon's glow, and to the lotus feet of Shri Hari, I bow down low. Okay, one more. Maybe I'll be late. Uradi Kutamudadi the Bangam, Navadadadikitano, again Rupa Goswami. Uradi Kutamudadi the Bangam, Navadadadikitano, the Sadangam, Yupati Badaya the Madanatadangam, Panamatayam, the Tatakatadangam. Upon his flute emanates entrancing sounds, for the girls whose love for him abounds bow down to the cloud-complexioned Lord who's dancing upon the Kalindi shore. Kalindi is another name for Yamuna. It's the river in Vrindavan. So, now, you can imagine, if you can understand every word of the Sanskrit, how absorbing it would be to be able to chant in that meter, you know? This is the art. You can't do this in English. Sanskrit is such a beautiful language. So, if you want my poetry, it'll cost you. You got to write me an email. I'll send you my poetry, and I'm including now the recording of it also. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari.